Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 55 of Little Big Knits. This is a podcast about knitting primarily, and my name is Selma. I am your host, also known as, what am I known as? Selma Knits on Instagram and Ravelry. I am coming to you from Ottawa, Canada, where we have a lovely late October day. And today my chicken mug Gertie wanted to come in and say hello. Literally, she called me from the cupboard and said, "Hey, it's been forever since I've been on the podcast." So I had to take her out. I wanted to bring out the pumpkin mug, but she screamed louder. So she came out today and is holding a cup of matcha latte, which I've made. I tried these, it's ripped up because I used it, these little latte packets from David's Tea as just an experiment. And I have to say, I've been enjoying them. They're a little on the decadent side, but they're quite yummy. So that is what's in my mug today, and hello from where I sit in my living room. It's nice to have you here. Thank you for joining me today. Welcome back to those of you who've been around for a long time, and welcome to those of you who are new. I have one finished object, which is the elephant in the room. I've got a couple of whips. I'm going to tell you a little bit about stuff that I'm thinking about or planning next, swatching, so forth. I've got a couple of acquisitions, and then I'll share some extra little tidbits at the end. So let's get started. First, a couple of little things. We have the Ranunculus knit along, the Ranunculus Love Cal, which is going strong. Lots of love for the Ranunculus, and that is going on in our Ravelry group, which actually, you know what, I jumped in and I forgot all my little tidbits that I usually say at the beginning. We have a Ravelry group called Little Big Knits. In that Ravelry group, you will find our knit-alongs. You can also find our knit-alongs as hashtags on Instagram. And the show notes for this show are down below, but you can also find them in Ravelry. So there you go. So our Ranunculus Love Cal is happening in Ravelry, but you can also use the hashtag on Instagram, and I'll share your finished projects. This has been an informal knit-along, people just sharing their progress, their questions, their finished objects, and so forth. And it's been going strong, lots of love for the Ranunculus, and it's making me want to knit another one, and I've been seriously considering it, I have to be honest. I've been seeing some red ones, and I've been thinking about a red one for Christmas, but we're not quite there yet. I haven't been able to find the right red. But others have, and found other wonderful colors as well, and have made all kinds of really beautiful versions of the Ranunculus. Now, I didn't know when I was going to finish this cal, and I think I've decided that it's going to be December 25th. So Christmas Day will be the last day for the Ranunculus cal. And that coincides with our other make-along called the LBK Christmas Mal, which ends on December 25th. And this is to do, and it's also informal as well. There's no separate threads. It's all in one thread. I've never done that before, but trying that out this year. And that is to do with all things Christmas, whether it's knitting or another craft, and whether it's for yourself or for others, or for your house, for example. If you are into making Christmas runners for your table, that's grand, or napkins, or you are weaving something, or sewing, or knitting, or crocheting, needle felting, whatever you may be doing that's Christmas related, whether it's for yourself, like a new Christmas sweater, or some Christmas socks, or some Advent knitting, or for somebody else, or for a charity, or for whatever. It's just really to get ourselves motivated, and which is, speaking of which, I need to get myself motivated. So I've decided that probably this weekend I am going to start the socks for a friend that I've been wanting to cast on. Also, a little later in the acquisitions, I'll be telling you about a coupon code that has been given to us for the podcast, so stick around for that. And last time I was wearing my Ellery sweater, and I mentioned to you guys that I felt that the neckline was a little too loose, and I had so many wonderful suggestions and comments, so thank you so much. One thing I realized, I thought that I would just do elastic around it, but as I wore the Ellery that day, I found my posture changing because I was trying to accommodate the neckline. That's not a good thing. So I've decided that I won't do it right away, but I will be ripping back the neckline. It's top down, so obviously I can't undo it, but I'm going to cut at the top, at the very end of the ribbing, pick up the stitches, do a decrease row of a few stitches, haven't quite figured out yet how many, but probably something like 10 or 15, and then re-knit the rib towards, you know, to upwards and finish it that way and bring it in. Rather than just doing an elastic or doing a crochet edge. And part of that is because the sweater is actually quite heavy. It is a good 500 grams, like it's a heavy sweater. And I feel like just putting I feel like it needs to come in a little more, or it's going to continue to have that feeling of being a little bit too big, and because of the weight of the sweater. So I think that's what I've opted to do. But I'm going to take my time on that one. So there we go. All right, I think we're ready to jump into the knitting. So it's the elephant in the room. In fact, this is a finished object times 2 in a sense, because I had showed it to you as a finished object, but then realized that I needed to do some modifications for it. So what am I wearing but this absolutely glorious, glorious cardigan called the Bindweed. It is by a design that was in Making Stories, and the design is by KSENIA NAIDYON, I believe. I always seem to struggle with that last name. And the instant I saw this pattern, I bought the Making Stories, I got the yarn, and I cast it on. I fell in love with this, and it was an absolute joy to knit. When I finished knitting it, I realized I had been a little enthusiastic about these cables, and the sleeves were too long and there was just way too much fabric here. And I also realized that I had been doubtful about the length of the cardigan and I had made it too long. So when I finished it, I decided that it wasn't quite finished, and towards the end of the summer and in September, I worked on this to shorten the sleeves. So the sleeves are now just sort of like perfect bracelet length. It makes it a much lighter, easier cardigan to wear, and I also shortened it. So here it is. I'm just wearing a black t-shirt with a black skirt. It's got a folded over edging. Now I have not blocked this or anything, so I don't know if it possibly could use some, but there it is. It's just like this little kind of almost shrug-like cardigan that you can wear. I'm wearing it with a skirt and a t-shirt, but you could wear it with a t-shirt and jeans or whatever. I have to say, I think this is going to take me a little while to figure out how to wear. Yesterday I was wearing it in the house with a t-shirt and a pair of jeans, although I was like, I think the t-shirt almost needs to be tucked in. Anyway, I think it's a little bit like the first time I made a ranunculus. I didn't know how I was going to wear it, and then I couldn't stop wearing it. This could end up being the same. It's an absolutely lovely, lovely piece. I'm so happy to have made this. What did I make this out of? I used the yarn that was recommended actually in the pattern, not in the same colorway. I used Knitting for Olive Merino and the Knitting for Olive Merino silk. Mohair silk. In the purple artichoke colorway. And I don't even remember where I bought this from. Did I get it from the Knitting Loft in Toronto? I can't remember which shop I had ordered this, but I ordered it online. It is yarn that can be found in lots of different shops. Lovely yarn. I will definitely be using it again. And it was really, truly a pleasure to knit this. I talked about it when I was doing it. The sleeves are where the magic are really, really happening. But just the whole, it's just an open little piece, really casual. I think this could be lovely. Also as a longer cardigan, but it's kind of neat as a short little cardigan. So yeah, I really, really like it. It fits very nicely, and The cables and the baubles were very easy to make, really. The setup is probably what was the most complicated, because you were casting on and you were setting up the sleeves while you were setting up this band. And so that took a lot of attention in the beginning, but then once you got going, it was, you know, you got into it, and the cables were actually quite intuitive and just truly, truly beautiful. And this is my first time, I think, doing cabling with two yarns stranded together, and one of them being mohair, and I think it looks really, really lovely with a very nice stitch definition. So I can't say more nice things. I think I probably could find something more to say, but I really do very much love this design. And Xenia has some really interesting designs. She's a very interesting designer, and so I'm looking forward to continuing to see what she has and going back and seeing some of her other designs as well. I know I've favorited some other ones. So really, really very lovely. That whole edition, although I didn't bring it down with me, of Making Stories has some other patterns in it that I would very much like to make. So let's see if and when that will happen. So there you go. That's my finished object for today. As far as works in progress, I have two active works in progress right now. The first is being housed in this bag by Sue of the Tangled Skein CA. It seems like every time I've got a project in one of her bags. And this is one that she had made to me that's a little bit bigger than the ones that she has in her shop. And in here is the Kallara that I am knitting for my sister-in-law. I have been knitting on this whenever I go to visit my mother. It's the one that I bring with me. I tend to go a couple of times a week, and Monday nights especially, I go and we watch The Voice together, and which I've just totally fallen in love with, that show, and it's just perfect, and I bring this along and knit it. So I'm past the halfway mark, which you can see that the direction is starting to change. And this is a pattern called the Kallara by AMBAH O'Brien. It's my second one. I think I showed you my version a couple of episodes ago, and I truly, it's probably one of my favorite pieces. I wear it all the time, not only because of the design, but I think I chose the right colors for me, which were 2 shades of gray with a tiny bit of purple in it. So I just love purple and I love gray. So this one I'm making out of MALABRIGO yarn that I had gotten from the MALABRIGO Dyeing Center in Montevideo when I was there last time. And it's turning out really well. And I'm really enjoying it. It's such an easy knit. However, I have one little problem. I'm using the MALABRIGO sock in the teal feather colorway, I believe. And then I'm using this one-of-a-kind single ply that they dyed up. And I'm going to run out of this. I know it. So I'm going to have to figure out what to do. This is not something I can get more of. And I thought about starting to have alternate the light colored stripes with orange, so that there would be one of the speckled and one orange, one speckled, one orange, which was what I had originally, I'd originally bought the orange that I used for the ripple bralette that I showed you a few episodes ago, which is also MALABRIGO in their terracotta colorway. And I had thought about putting the 3 colors together. So I could either do it where I alternate the speckled with the orange, or I just do a block of the orange with the teal feather towards the end. And I haven't quite decided what to do yet, but I'm definitely gonna have to get creative with this. That did not dawn on me when I started this, that of course the single ply is more plump than the sock yarn. Whoops. So you get, and I don't actually even know what the yardage of this was to begin with, but you can see that the threads, that there is a real difference in the plumpness of the yarn. So even though the skeins looked the same, there's actually less yardage of this. So that's a quandary that I'm going to have to solve, and I feel like I need to solve it before I can continue knitting on this. So I'm going to bring out the orange and maybe try a couple of little rows to see how I like the idea of striping, and then if not, then I might just do it as a color block, and when you have the shawl on, you'll see that there's, you know, that there's another color there. I haven't quite decided what to do with that yet, but it was going swimmingly until I realized that. That has to be finished for Christmas for sure, because it is going to Uruguay as a Christmas present. In the end, we are not going to Uruguay, but our son is. We decided not to go for a variety of reasons, but he was really lamenting and really wanting to see our family down there, my husband's family. So he's of age, he's 18, he can travel on his own if he wants to, so we said sure. So it'll be a little bit of a strange Christmas for us because it'll only be the three of us, and he'll be down there, but I think it'll be really, really wonderful for him to be able to make that connection with his family, or with our family in Uruguay. And so he'll be taking that shawl down for my sister-in-law. So it has to be finished by December 21st, blocked and everything, and ready to go. The other thing that I am knitting on is being housed. As often I use this bag because it's just a really easy bag to use. It's this bag by Buku that I got a few years ago, and in here is my Elton cardigan. I am doing very, very well on the Elton cardigan. The Elton cardigan is a design by LOCATELLI. It is this very, very simple striped cardigan, and I just finished the sleeve last night. In fact, it is still attached to the ball, but this is just really, really, really lovely. In fact, perhaps what I'll do is try it on for you so that you can see how it looks. So, doesn't look great with this t-shirt that's got all this extra fabric here, but here it is. So here is the sleeve, and obviously I'm going to have to put ribbing around the neck as well as the button band, and have to find buttons for this. I hadn't even thought about buttons, but so far that is how it is looking. So yeah, I think this is going to be really lovely. I'm very excited about it. What I'm really enjoying about this is that it's going to be a light cardigan, and most of the cardigans that I have are really much warmer cardigans, but because this is, you know, mohair and merino held alone and not held together, I think it's going to be a really nice light cardigan that just put on over a t-shirt with jeans, and it's going to be very nice. So I'm looking forward to having this finished. I'll be starting the second sleeve tonight, and I have to say that it's a very simple knit. It's a slightly tedious knit, just because you're striping, you're carrying the yarn, so you don't have to cut every time. But there's some yarn management, especially in the sleeves, that I find slows things down a little bit. But it's certainly an easy knit. It's stocking knit, so you're going one row of knit, one row of purl, just like any cardigan would be. This is not one. Some people will steek cardigans so that they can just do it all in the round. I don't think I would dare do it with the yarn that I've used, just because I have no idea how mohair would react. So this is using a beautiful, beautiful yarns from Alley Cat Yarns, which is a local dyer. And she so very kindly had given me the mohair. This is how much I have left. She gave me a second skein, so I'm very curious to see if I have to break into the second skein or not. And I had gotten this beautiful, this is her Leo base, which is a BFL sock, 80% blue face Leicester and 20% nylon. and it's a hand wash wool. And this is the mohair silk that she dyed to go with it. And I'm just so loving this combination, and the yarn is beautiful. And because this is non-superwash, I have to say that it's a little bit like it has a woolly feeling to it. It doesn't have that slick superwash yarn feeling to it. So it's really beautiful. And if I had to choose a desert island yarn, that would be it. So those are my 2 works in progress that I have been actively working on when I have the time to knit. All right, so I just wanted to share a little bit of some of the swatching that I've been doing and some ideas around that and little plans. I never really know what my next knit is going to be. I have all kinds of plans, and then sometimes it ends up being one of those plans, and then sometimes I go in a completely different direction. So I can't say what I'm going to cast on next with full assuredness, but you may recall, if you were here, I think last time, or perhaps it was the time before, I had gotten this yarn, which was called a British yarn at FILATURE LEMIEUX, which is a yarn distributor. They also dye yarn, and they have different types of yarns. I had got this thinking that it would be a rustic wool. I also told you that it had a real loofah quality to it, and that I had swatched and soaked this and determined that it definitely had to be an exterior kind of garment. I have since decided that I don't even know that I would want it to be that. It is very, very rustic. And I've had another idea for this. I actually could use a little carpet next to my bed. The carpet that I got rid of recently, and I haven't gotten anything. And then I thought that I might do a sort of crochet square carpet for next to my bed. This would suit the coloring. Actually, my walls in our bedroom are actually about this color. So this would be a lovely accent on the floor. So I'm thinking that this really is very rough, rougher than I would really like it to be. I do think it would be fine as a coat, but you definitely want to have other layers under it, because even though I'm not that sensitive, like this doesn't bother me, I'm not sure that I would feel that great wearing this against my skin. It's really lovely and very natural feeling, and I think it would be great crocheted up. So I'm gonna hopefully swatch a little crochet square. I even thought of holding it double strand and making something quite thick, and then perhaps putting a bottom felted layer or something like that, and that could be really, really nice and something different as well. The other thing I wanted to show you today is I had made this sweater for Alejandro a while ago. This is the JAYDEN sweater by Isabelle KRAEMER, and I had made it out of Harrisville tweed yarn, or Harrisville Designs yarn, their Watershed that I had gotten at Rhinebeck, and I think it was the Stonewall colorway. And it's actually a stunning, stunning yarn. It's gray, but I don't know if this light is going to pick it up. It has flecks of so many colors within it, like red and yellow, and it's just beautiful. But Alejandro is very hard on his sweaters. And it's not that it has holes, but he has actually destroyed the ribbing on this sweater. And so I wanted to re-knit the ribbing on it, and in fact maybe make it a little longer for him, but I could not find any leftovers, and I was sure that I must have leftovers somewhere, and I could not find them. And so I've ordered some yarn from Harrisville and waiting for it to arrive. And once it does, I will turn this into a longer rib. I'll rip it out and turn it into a longer rib. But of course, in the meantime, I found the other nugget. I haven't been able to find it for forever. Like, I cleaned my entire yarn closet in the spring and it didn't show up, and I finally found it in some project bag somewhere. So I probably don't really need the yarn from Harrisville, except that I don't think that there would be enough in the nugget to make this a little longer. So I will be working on that and hopefully finishing that in the next couple of weeks so that Alejandro can start wearing this sweater, because he really does wear it a lot. And I realized I should probably look at the sleeves too, but the sleeves seem to be fine. Oh no. So I guess I'll be doing the ribbing on the sleeve as well. So it looks like I do need the new yarn from Harrisville. And then, this is actually partly to do with acquisitions. I went to Montreal 3 weeks ago or so, and yeah, so I went into Espace Tricot thinking that I was going to get one little thing or a couple of little things, and I walked out of there with 2 sweater quantities. So that's the way things seem to roll around here. This is a yarn that I have been looking at a lot. I'm not sure if Lisa and Melissa ever spoke about it on their podcast, maybe once. And actually, Espace Tricot is no longer owned by Lisa and Melissa, but by Naomi and Stephanie. So they've just started podcasting. But I had been very intrigued by this yarn when I had seen it, because it is by RAUMA Garn, who make the famous PT2. But this is an alpaca lin. So it is an alpaca and linen combination, 48% alpaca, 48% baby alpaca, 8% wool, and 44% linen. So I love linen. I really like alpaca as well, and I was just very intrigued by this. And I had this yarn left over from the ranunculus that I made for my friend. The last ranunculus, which is a cream colored ranunculus. And I thought, these two together could become the Magnolia Bloom, which is a sweater I've been really wanting to make for a while, ever since it came out. I think I bought it immediately. And I just haven't really found the yarn for it, because it really needs to be something soft. And I have been swatching with these 2 yarns. Now my swatch is a little funny looking, because I started out flat with, oops, it's backwards, with 6mm needles and really loved it. And then went in the round with the 6mm needles. And I feel like I need to go up to 7mm needles, which is actually the size that is used in the Magnolia Bloom. So I'm in the process of swatching this, and it's absolutely delightful. And what's really great is that this has linen, 44%, quite a high percentage. And this has actually no wool in it. So although this will be a chunky, bulky sweater, it will not be very, very warm, which I'm kind of liking the idea of. And although I originally thought about making a red Christmas sweater, I'm starting to think about a white Christmas sweater for myself. But I'm just loving it. It's just got the right amount of floof, but with some nice structure to it as well. And I think this is going to make a really, really nice Magnolia Bloom. So I'm very excited about that. Now, the other thing that I bought when I was in Espace Tricot was a sweater quantity of red yarn, thinking that I would make myself a red ranunculus for Christmas. I have been thinking about doing a colorwork sweater for Christmas, and somehow it's just not speaking to me right now. However, I have to say, I'm not sure this is the best red for me. I've swatched with 2 different reds that I have. One was a little too burgundy, and it just didn't really look good. And the other thing that I've swatched with is this Nutiden. You'll recall this lovely, lovely cake of Nutiden. I had done a swatch with some Shibui silk and the Nutiden, which really, really do look absolutely beautiful together. I really like that. And this is, my conclusion is that I'm going to make something in this. However, I wanted to see what the red would look like with the Nutiden and on larger needles, because this swatch used 3.5 millimeters, which I didn't like, and 4 millimeters here, which I very much liked. And I wanted to see if I were to make a ranunculus with the Nutiden and the Biche et Bûche red yarn that I got, how would it look? And I made it on 6 millimeter needles. And what is great is that certainly the Nutiden can handle larger needles, no problem. I was really skeptical about that, but it's wonderful. And the red and the Nutiden do go well together, but I do think that I prefer this one to this one. There is something a little orangey in this yarn that's not the best for my skin tone, I feel. Maybe I just haven't found the right red to go with it. I don't know. So I'm a little undecided. In the store, it didn't seem to have that, but when I'm here at home and swatching with it, I'm not 100% sure. So I don't know that I'll have a red ranunculus for Christmas, unless something just strikes me. I may have a white magnolia bloom instead for Christmas. But that is some of the swatching and the thoughts that I've had. I'll definitely be fixing Alejandro's Jayden very soon, because this is one that he really wears all the time, and the yarn is wonderful, but Alejandro is always hard on his sweaters, and yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do when I redo the ribbing. What can I do to make it perhaps a little bit more robust? We'll see. Or maybe I just keep a little bit of Watershed in my stash for when I need to darn it. There's certainly no holes in the sweater, which is great. It's just the fraying on the edges. So there you go. That is some of the planning that I have done. In terms of other acquisitions, because I've shown you my main acquisitions, I was given a lovely skein of yarn from Donna of Roots and Rain, which actually reminded me, I thought that I had given she had given me another skein of her field sock yarn as a giveaway for the podcast, and I thought I had already given it away, and then I realized that I had not. So that is coming up. I have some ideas for a giveaway in the near future. But then she said, that she wanted to give me a skein of her field sock. So that was very, very lovely. And I went to pick it up from her because she lives about 1 kilometer away from me. And this was dyed in indigo. And it is essentially a single ply, sort of very rustic sock yarn. And I am really looking forward to casting this on. That probably won't happen until sometime in the new year. I have the Linea socks, which I want to pick up again once I've finished the socks for my friend and finished with Christmas knitting. And then I think I hope to cast this on. I'm very, very intrigued to work with this yarn, and it's just such a beautiful color. It's coming up as more gray on the screen, but there is a real blueness to it from the indigo, and then I think the base yarn has a grayness to it. And the base yarn is 80% Canadian wool, which is Corriedale, Dorset, and Suffolk, and 20% nylon. So yeah, thank you so much, Donna. I'm really, really looking forward to casting this on. And Donna has a pattern that goes with this yarn should you want to venture and get some of her yarn when it's available. Donna is Roots and Rain, and her yarns are on Etsy. And she has a pattern, which I cannot recall the name of right now. I'll put it down here, that she sells as well, because this is actually more of a sport weight yarn. So if you were wanting to get some of this, you would want a sock pattern that was meant for a sport weight yarn, more like it. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a lovely, lovely gift. And it came with some wonderful tea by OTs, which is a Canadian tea company, which I really enjoyed. And thank you for all the other teas too, Donna. Really, really lovely. And that's it for yarn that has come into my life. However, there are 2 patterns that were gifted to me by designers who got in touch with me. And the first one is called the Neji or the Neji. I'm not 100% sure. I probably should have checked. And this is a design, a lovely whimsical colorwork design, which I'll put here somewhere on the screen for you to see. And it's just got these beautiful flowers on them. And it's just absolutely lovely. And this design is by Wala Emad, and who kindly gifted to me. So thank you so, so much. The other design that was also gifted to me is by Debbie Mage, or Mage. I'll have it here on the screen. It's called Dandelion Dreams. And I have to say that this is also such a very pretty design. I actually thought this would make a beautiful Christmas sweater. It's so delicate and lovely. It's got a very, very simple detail in the yoke, but it's also got a tiny bit of beading, which I'm sure you can omit. But I thought that also in a cream color would make a beautiful Christmas sweater, or in red, for example. It's just really, really pretty, and this is made, I think, in a light fingering yarn, if I remember correctly. Certainly a fingering weight yarn. I think the original yarn uses cashmere, and that's why it has a very soft look to it. Just beautiful. So thank you so much. And Debbie has actually offered the viewers of the podcast a 15% code until November 15th using LBK15. So if you're interested in purchasing Dandelion Dreams until November 15th, you can have a 15% off using LBK15. So thank you very much for that, Debbie. So that is what I have as far as acquisitions this time. I wanted to share with you a book that I've gotten out of the library 3 times now. That usually means that I should probably purchase it. It is such a beautiful book. You may recall, this is a book by Norah Gaughan called the Twisted Stitch Sourcebook. You may remember that Norah Gaughan, she is very innovative in her patterns, often has a lot of cables, interesting stitch patterns, and she actually has a book called I think it was called the Cable Sourcebook. And so now she has the Twisted Stitch Sourcebook. And it is full of twisted stitch type patterns. So, for example, just all kinds. And I think it is divided into different sections. So there are diagonal stitches, small stitches, horizontal, vertical, compass, eyelet, extreme, and kaleidoscope. So, excuse me, we're just going to ignore that. And then she also has some patterns in there as well. And it is just really, really interesting, different kinds of stitch patterns, some that look like cables, some that don't. Here is one that's called the Wonky Weave, for example, and it's just got such beautiful ideas. This one is called the Rattan Field. It's just beautiful. There was one, then she does some, I'll just show this to you quickly. Then she does some that are like that are meant for circular knitting. But there are just so many incredible patterns in here. I just am quite mesmerized by them all. Here's one called Cherries. So yeah, there was one in particular, and I should have marked it before I started podcasting. Oh, this one. I am really quite taken by this. It's probably partly the color too, but I just thought that on the front of a vest, for example, would be truly beautiful. So it's just full of different patterns. but then of different stitch patterns, I should say. And then there are designs for different types of knitted items like garments as well as accessories. So it's an absolutely beautiful book. This is one of the patterns in it as well. And I may need to put this on my Christmas list because it's really very, very beautiful. Yeah, and Norah is always very innovative. Here is actually another one that's a more conservative kind of looking sweater, but very lovely as well. So yeah, it's just a really lovely book, and I wanted to share it with you because I just can't stop taking it out of the library. And so that is really it for the knitting content. So I thought I would just tell you a little bit about some of the things I've been watching, as well as a movie that I saw and a couple of the books that I've been listening to. So I went to see Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is a recent Marvel movie. I went to see that with my son when he was here for Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving. And this is a new Marvel movie, and it is starring Simu Liu, who was one of the main actors in Kim's Convenience, which was it's a Canadian sitcom about a Korean family in a shop. And you may recall that I went to the actual store that the show is named after, Kim's Convenience in Toronto, just to see the outside of the store that's used in the as sort of the setting for the TV show. So Simu Liu, who plays the son in that show, is the star of the Shang-Chi movie. And so we had to go and see that. And it didn't disappoint. It was a lot of fun. Lots of great sort of Asian style fight scenes. Like if you've seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which I think is probably my favorite adventure movie in a sense. The fight scenes in that movie are just so stunning. And this was reminiscent of that, especially in the early part of the movie. It was a lot of fun. Totally worth seeing. I really enjoyed it. I've been watching, well, actually I finished watching Sex Education on Netflix, which I have to say I truly enjoyed. Amy Palco of The Meaningful Stitch had recommended it on her podcast, and I just absolutely fell in love with that show and could not stop watching, stayed up way too late. It is really great fun. It's funny, it's provocative, it's educational. I really love that they address issues that are sometimes taboo, and it's just put out there, so it's quite provocative that way, and also I think really great. As well as issues related to all kinds of gender identities and sexual orientations, and I think that is fabulous too. I just loved the show. Really, really enjoyed it. It was laugh out loud funny at times. And then since then, I have started Ted Lasso, which is on Apple TV, and I'm really enjoying that too. It's light-hearted, it's fun, it's sweet, it's really great. And I think they just cleaned up at the Emmys, and yeah, it's a really, really fun show. So that's what I've been watching. I finished the book Woman of Troublesome Creek. I don't think I mentioned this to you last time. This is a book by Michele Richardson, and it's about the Blue people of Kentucky. It's a book that takes place in the 1930s, and it's about a what would you call it? A traveling librarian. She travels on a donkey, and she is a person who has a blue tinge to her skin, and these are people that existed, and it's due to a genetic deformation of some kind. I can't remember exactly. You know, they were treated in the same way as any person of color, very poorly. And so the book it's a lovely book in many ways. It's very sweet. It's a very quiet, gentle book, but yet deals with racism, deals with being a woman in the South in the 1930s. And also the idea of a traveling librarian was apparently an initiative that was put forward by Roosevelt, I believe. So it's historically very interesting. I really enjoyed the book. It's a little bit predictable, but that's okay. I still enjoyed it, and it was a really nicely read story. It was very well read. I know that on Audible there were some criticisms about the narrator's accent. That didn't bother me because I'm not that well versed in Southern accents. But I thought she read it in a very compelling way. It grabbed me from the very beginning. I really enjoyed it. So thank you to the viewer who had mentioned that. And I am almost finished. I don't have a whole lot left. The next book that I'm reading, which is by Mary Lawson, and it's called Road Ends. Mary Lawson has come out with a new book recently called A Town Called Solace. So Mary Lawson is actually a writer from Canada. I believe she's actually in Ontario. And I believe she was born in Ontario. Not 100% sure. But I've read all of her books except the most recent one. I had started Road Ends years ago as an actual physical read, and for some reason I started struggling years ago with actually reading a book. And when I started listening to Audible, I looked for Mary Lawson on Audible, and she was not there. I had read her first two books, Crow's Lake and The Other Side of the Bridge. I loved both of her books, which was why I started reading Road Ends probably 10 years ago when it first came out. And her books were not on Audible, and she recently came out with her fourth book, A Town Called Solace, and there seemed to be a bit of hoopla about that book, so I thought, oh well, let's see if they put that one on Audible, and then suddenly all her books were on Audible. So I went back and decided that I was going to read or listen to Road Ends, and I have been doing so, and I've been really, really enjoying it. She tends to write about, her first three books anyway are based on a fictional or fictitious town in Northern Ontario called Struan. Doesn't really exist, but she has really captured the essence of a Northern Ontario town. And her books are always about sort of dysfunctional families and the struggles of each member of a family. And this book is very similar. This one is very much about the push and pull of individuality versus family life. And I just love the way she tells the story. This story is written by the perspective of three different characters. So it goes, one chapter is each character. And it takes place in the 60s. And it's just really, I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm very curious to see how the novel ends. Yeah, but I've very much enjoyed it, a lot. And so that is what I have been reading. And I think that brings us to the end of the podcast, friends. October, we had Thanksgiving, of course. I've gone on a few little hikes. I have developed a bit of a weird pain in my foot, so I'm going to physiotherapy for that and hoping that will fix it. And yeah, life is just going on. And next weekend, actually, I'll be going to New Brunswick with Isla to visit a friend there. Isla wants to visit a friend, and I'll be accompanying them and then taking time for myself in New Brunswick and hopefully in Fredericton, and hopefully just visiting the town and just taking it easy. I'm very much looking forward to that. And that's essentially what's been going on around here. So thank you for joining me today. And I hope you have enjoyed a nice quiet time of listening to some knitting chat. And we'll see you next time. Take care, friends. Bye-bye.
The stars have come in close just to see you, I suppose, and they're a-gleaming. You must be dreaming, and the sun has said goodbye with a twinkle in his eye. He's left the ocean with sweet emotion. We go dancing in the rain, riding on a midnight train, away so slowly. And the moon is looking down on the sleepy side of town, and he's so lonely. I love you only. I love you only. All the birds have taken flight. It's their favorite time of night, when they can hear you from somewhere near you. And the palm trees try to bend to be closer to their friends. They're made of magic. Reach out and grab it. We go dancing in the rain, riding on a midnight train, away so slowly. And the moon is looking down on the sleepy side of town, and he's so lonely.